Hi, I'm Joe Walensky, and I'm the principal of Walensky and Associates. And an event that we have coming up is Writers UA East for Content Pros, taking place in Raleigh, North Carolina, October 4th and 5th. And that is being held in cooperation with the Department of English at North Carolina State University. So we're excited about that, and excited about getting to talk to all of the speakers that are part of the event. So today I'm having a mini interview with Lisa Veasey. How are you doing today, Lisa?
Doing great. Thanks, Joe.
Well, I am in the Seattle area. Where are you talking to us from?
I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan at Washtenaw Community College.
Well, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your background and the types of things that you do at Washtenaw.
Okay. I started my career in the late 80s. I was under contract to Ford Motor Company, St. John Hospital and Medical Center. I did that for a few years. And then a good chunk of my career was in tax and accounting software. And I did several things there, from user documentation, online help, technical training, management. I developed processes for us to use to really speed our process. We had really tight deadlines. And then I decided to step off the treadmill of software and take a break when my kids were little. And I had taught part-time in the past, so I was then interviewing for a full-time teaching position, and I was lucky enough to get this position several years ago and develop and build their technical communication program. So I've been here full-time since '99.
Well, I always like to give visibility to programs like yours because, well, maybe there's not as many as possibly we would like, but why don't you talk a little bit about the offerings that are available through your program?
Okay, sure. We offer an associate degree and a certificate. The associate degree is designed for students who are planning on transferring to a four-year institution and they really need a strong foundation in technical communication. And then the certificate is really designed for people who have a degree in some other field of study and they've always enjoyed writing, they love communication, and they want to add some tools to their toolbox and get out there and maybe do some technical communication. The program is very hands-on. When I first started in the field, I didn't know anything about interviewing experts. I didn't know about project planning. I didn't know about audience analysis. There were many, many gaps I felt in my knowledge. I think I was a sound, solid writer, which of course is a foundation, but I didn't know any of those other things. I didn't know any tools that were used in the industry. It was a little simpler back then. Everything was at a DOS prompt, but there was still a significant learning curve when I got my first real job. So my mission here is to make sure students are not only great writers, but they explore how to create a large document for print, say that a company would have on their website that a customer could download in PDF format. How can they create a knowledge base or an online help system that's ADA compliant, that is really easy to search, very usable for their clients, and how can they keep that updated? How can they learn about single sourcing, topic-based authoring, not just reading about it, but actually doing it? I want students with every class I teach to have a tangible portfolio piece that they could show an employer and say, I created this. I happen to have been a student when I did it. And finally, I've added a course in e-learning, screencasting. I think more and more technical communicators are being asked to create those types of learning or training materials for the company, and I want students to know how to do it really well, and then later on, if they wish to cut corners, they can do that. If they have some quick need for a video, they can create it with a little more knowledge. So it's just a 2-year program, but we pack in as much as we possibly can.
Well, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned some new coursework, adding in Captivate, and Adobe is one of the foundation sponsors for our event, so it was cool to hear about that. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you're integrating Captivate with your curriculum?
Sure. It started when we went on a site visit, a client site visit, and we were talking about different ways that we can communicate with our audience. and the topic of screencast videos came up. And the people we were interviewing, professional technical communicators, one person said, well, I begin with an ADDIE model and I have thumbnail sketches and then I get buy-in from the stakeholders, and then I go ahead and I go in production, a very phased traditional approach. And then another person said, I never do that. I just go in there, record the video, and get it up on the website as quickly as I can. I realized two things from that conversation. One, my students who were on this site visit had no idea what they were talking about. What's the ADDIE model? What does any of this mean? And two, I could tell that some people who we were interviewing, the professionals, had limited experience with some of the tools. So they were using far fewer of the tools and options available in tools like Captivate or Camtasia. So I thought, hey, this is an opportunity for me to develop a course so my students really understand the foundation and basics of communicating through screencast video. And then if they want to break rules later on, they'll know the rules they're breaking. But I wanted them to have a strong foundation. It's something that I was familiar with. I learned more. I used the Techcom suite, Adobe Techcom suite in my program. I also used MadCat Flare extensively in my program. So I wanted to expose students to this other piece of technical communication. And really, I felt like once I added it to the program that it had been missing for years. It always should have been there. It's been really successful, and students are getting jobs with these skills. So.
Well, hearing that they're getting jobs is always a great thing, and I've been a part-time instructor at the University of Washington for about 25 years now, and so students are always interested in acquiring the skills they need. But I'm also always getting questions from employers, from people that are looking for technical communicators, either telling me what they're looking for or trying to find out, how curriculums are set up. Let's talk a little bit about your conference session. The title is The Challenges of Preparing Techcom Students for the Workforce. So just maybe talk a little bit about your experiences and how you came around to that topic.
Yeah. I think employers, at least in my area, employers want students who can really do it all, and they want that recent grad plus 2 years of experience, but they want to pay that entry-level wage, right? It's kind of a perennial problem. I find that we need a solid foundation in good written and oral communication, but many of the job leads that my students research when they're applying for jobs also want a certain skill set. They want them to be relatively knowledgeable in the tools and technologies of technical communication. So for me, I have a 2-year program or a 20 credit hour certificate. My challenge is to give them the foundation in clear and effective communication and kind of a sampling of some of the tools that they're going to need to know for the workplace. And I don't think all employers know how challenging that can be to give students the experience, not to just talk about it or to write a research paper about analyzing, say, Camtasia versus Captivate, but actually doing the work. I use an analogy in class sometimes where I tell students, I'm not going to teach you the physics of riding a bike, focusing primarily on that theory. I'm going to have you ride the bike and then tell me what happened. So every class I have, because I've been in the field and because I've run departments and hired contractors and I've done all that work, I run my classes as much like a department as I can without cutting them a paycheck every 2 weeks. So I think that puts my students in a better position for employment. But it's also, there's still that gap where education ends and practice begins that I'm constantly trying to fill. And it's really challenging, especially when I only have 60 or 62 credit hours to work with, and more than half of that needs to be general education. So that's some of the challenges I face, making sure students know what XML is and CSS. I mean, that's also included in this list of things they need to know before they go out into the real world. And I've been doing this for years. It's more and more challenging because there's so much more to know. And the pace is much faster than it was when I started. I mean, when I started, it's like, here's how we modify a CNT file, and there's a lot more to know now.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be an interesting topic. I think most of the people in attendance will either be looking for those new students and thinking about skills. Also, I know a lot of us are always trying to acquire e-learning skills where we may have gaps, and then we do have people from the academic community like yourself. So it should be a great topic. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about this, and I'll just see you in just a few months in Raleigh.
Sounds great. Good to talk to you, Joe. Thanks.